Greetings, everyone. It's funny. I'm seeing I'm not on the YouTube interface. I'm not seeing uh, very many people, and I'm wondering. There's kind of a really long delay between what I say and what shows up on the YouTube. So I hope things are going okay. Um, Today is the fourth day of the week where I've been subbing for Gil and talking about this gradual step-by-step way that the Buddha would give a talk when first introducing people to the Dharma. I mentioned that he didn't start talking about mindfulness and samadhi. He spoke of ways that people can act in their daily lives and ways they can orient their lives that build a foundation for a mind that is ready to engage with the wisdom teachings of the path. And as the listener comes to see the value in cultivating generosity, ethical sensitivity, and understanding of karma, and then recognizing the disadvantages of depending on worldly pleasures and comfort, their mind is getting close to being sufficiently prepared to hear the teachings that are special to the Buddhas. And those are the topics that we've gone through this week so far. And there's one more step in this gradual introduction, and that's our topic for today. And that is nekama, which is usually translated as renunciation. Letting go is a nice synonym if you find that word renunciation a bit austere. But before I say any more about it, let's meditate. So taking a comfortable posture, relaxing, noticing any areas of tension. Just checking maybe the typical areas where you carry tension. It's definitely the neck and top of the shoulders for me. We all have our favorite places. Just breathing into those areas, and as you exhale, seeing if they can soften a bit. When there's holding in the body, there's often holding also in the mind. So just sensing into those places, if there are such places in your body this morning, and seeing. They can just soften, relax, let go. And then receiving the sensations of breathing, letting those be in the forefront. Just very simply. Just knowing the sensations as they arise, where they arise. Recognizing that the sensing of the sensations happens exactly where the sensations are arising. They're known in the moment as they happen. And as we soften in the areas where there's tension in the body, noticing the softening that can accompany that in the mind. Noticing the effect of the rhythm of breathing in the mind. Does it soften the mind? Does it allow it to settle a bit more? Letting go of any straining, letting go of tension, letting go of mental activity as much as possible, letting go into settledness, into relaxation. And just being with the fluidity, the movement, the rhythm of the breath as we sit. And as the meditation comes to an end, just notice if there's been calm or subtleness that you've come to feel during this set. Any inner benefit that you feel, that any of us feel, may we bring that into the world today, into our activities, into our interactions. Bringing what we receive every day from our meditation practice, from our Dharma practice, into our days, and sharing the benefit of that with all that we meet, all situations, all beings. May we do that. So today's topic is the final step in the Buddha's kind of step-by-step discourse, preparing people's minds to be ready to hear the teachings special to the Buddhas. So first there was dana, giving, which is a beneficial action that opens the heart. Remember, Bhikkhu Bodhi spoke of giving as bringing pliancy to the mind, allowing for the eradication of delusion, he said, allowing openness to new ways of thinking. And then the generosity, that underlies giving, it brings contentment, it brings satisfaction to the heart. It's skillful, it's wholesome. Talked about that quite a bit. Then the Buddha goes on, after talking about giving, to talk about ethics, ethical sensitivity, the development of ethics, the value in acting in ways that don't harm, finding a wholesome mental satisfaction in the actions themselves, just like with giving, and also seeing them as creating conditions for good to arise. And then beginning to get a sense of the kinds of happiness and ease that come from skillful action and wholesome states of mind, beginning to get a sense that those kinds of happiness, those happinesses that arise from within, that they're much more satisfying than the temporary pleasures of sense desires. The listener's mind is more receptive, more open to hearing what they might have rejected at the beginning as a result of what the Buddha's talk has done with their minds, the effect it's had. And the Buddha gives this step-by-step discourse, of course, as a guide to how the Dharma can unfold, with a gradual awareness of the value of giving and ethical action and the potential rewards coming from acting in those ways. Some kinds of some of those rewards may be heavenly. And then the Buddha turns around in a way, pointing out the dangers of pleasures, the kinds of pleasures that most people build their lives around, which would include the kinds of pleasures that might be available in heavenly realms. So right there, there's an inherent contrast being set up with the deeper, more wholesome pleasures that come from a mind and heart that are engaged in action that's beneficial, that's kind, that's wise. And those pleasures are more reliable than those that are arising from a life centered on obeying this constant striving for comfort and pleasure based on what comes in through the senses, physical senses, mind as well. They arise from within, these more deep pleasures, more wholesome pleasures. They arise from within. They're not dependent on anything outside ourselves. That's a really important point. And some of the people listening at this point, they're likely to see the contrast, recognizing that maybe there's another way of living than chasing after worldly comfort, worldly pleasures. As people engage in practicing in the way that the Buddha has encouraged their minds, our minds, begin to turn toward the Dharma, gradually to see there's a more reliable source of happiness than getting what we want. Now we begin to see the wisdom of trading candy for gold, as Thanissaro Bhikkhu, the American monk and translator, describes it. Trading candy for gold, seeing the futility of looking for a reliable source of happiness in things that are changing all the time, satisfactions that are tied to, to much more craving, for the craving for something, for more of something, and for something desired that's happening to continue, all those kinds of craving, or craving for something that we don't like to end or to change in a way that we'd prefer. Just seeing the stress in all this craving, seeing how pervasive it is, and perhaps beginning to see that craving itself is stress, is dukkha. Actually feeling the stress in the craving, the painful, constricted quality in the heart, in the mind, in the body. That is really the essence of craving, is constricted dukkha. So this final step is letting go, renunciation. And the Pali word is nekkhamma, and it literally means to walk out or to go forth. The phrase that's used for entering the monastic life, to go forth into homelessness, as it's often phrased in the text. So if the people the Buddha is teaching if they're still attached to the satisfaction of sense desires, if they cling to the idea that getting what they want and keeping what they have and getting more again and again is the best way to spend their lives, they're probably going to see renunciation as kind of synonymous with deprivation, with a loss. But the minds of the people that the Buddha is addressing have been primed by teachings on giving and ethics and dana and the disadvantages of karma and the disadvantages of depending on sense pleasures. And his intention in giving this step by step is to gradually turn their minds in the direction of what's wholesome, what's beneficial. And so for some of them, that's probably happened. They see the potential in trading candy for gold. They might begin to see letting go as freeing themselves from the ways that they're bound by the things that they own, the things that they cling to. Then renunciation doesn't seem like deprivation. It's like dropping a load. It's a relief. It's a relief. I'm sure you can relate to that. When we let go of something that we've been holding, it's just such a relief. And I realize I've been saying they as though this only applies to those people 2,600 years ago listening to the Buddha for the first time. But letting go of craving and clinging, it's a gradual process for most of us. So valuing renunciation, coming to see the freedom of it, that's also going to be a gradual process for us. We're not likely to suddenly, give up everything and go forth into homelessness, become monastics. And one talk is certainly not likely to do it. It is a bhavana. It is a cultivation, gradually coming to see the downside of depending on what is undependable for happiness, gradually developing more interest and deriving more satisfaction from living in a way that doesn't harm, finding more satisfaction in the beautiful qualities of the heart and mind that grow as we live more generously, more thoughtfully, as we grow in wisdom, as we become more and more able to determine the difference between what is wholesome and what is not. There's a story in the early texts about a monk who was a king before he went forth into homelessness Perhaps you've heard it before. The monk's name was Badia. And when he was off in the woods or in an empty hut meditating, he would often be exclaiming, "Oh, what bliss! Oh, what bliss!" And some of the other monks heard him, and they assumed that he was thinking about the old days when he was a king and he was surrounded by all these sensual pleasures. So they went to the Buddha and they reported their suspicions to him. The Buddha sent for Badia, and when Badia arrived, the Buddha asked him if it was true that he would exclaim, "Oh, what bliss! Oh, what bliss!" while he was sitting in some wild, desolate place. And Badia told the Buddha, yes, it was true. And he explained, when the Buddha asked him why he did this, that in the days when he was a king, he had all this great protection from guards in the palace, in the city, all around in the countryside, all these people whose job it was to protect him. And still, all the time, he was fearful, he was scared, he was suspicious, he was nervous. But now, wherever he found himself, even out in these wild places, he said he was unruffled, relaxed, at ease, owning nothing, living on charity. His heart was as free as a wild deer, he said, as free as a wild deer. The things we own, they have a hold on us. If you own a car, you have to have insurance on the car, you have to make repairs to it, and it can break down at really inconvenient times and then cost a lot to fix. You might worry if you park it in an area where there's a lot of car theft. I have a Prius, and a few years ago, there was a kind of an epidemic of the theft of catalytic converters from automobiles, because they have some rare metals in them, I think, that are valuable. And for some reason, Priuses were often targeted here in the United States anyway. And I remember being kind of nervous when traveling and parking in motel parking lot, trying to make sure the car was in a well-lighted spot near the front door of the building. There was stress associated with this. And I don't know if catalytic converter theft is still a thing, but I did let go of worrying about it, and that was a relief. And remembering the story of Ajahn Chah, that the beautiful cup that he used to drink his tea from, it was already broken in his mind. He could use it and enjoy it because he let go of clinging to it. I'm not going to let go of that car, but I recognize that clinging to it involves stress that would disappear if I could say, like Ajahn Chah, that the car is already gone. I had a friend who used to ask himself about his possessions. Do I own the car, for example, or does it own me? Good question to ask, And when there's craving and clinging, any kind of attachment to physical things like our possessions, or to relationships, to views about ourselves, hanging on to stories about ourselves and our lives, about others, needing to be seen in certain ways. Anytime there's clinging, craving to these things, it's true in a sense that those things own us. At least they have a kind of lien on our existence. We aren't free of them. So there's going to be dukkha. Anytime there's any kind of craving and clinging, there's going to be stress. There's going to be dukkha. We know that. So nekama, letting go. As lay people, what are often called householders, we aren't likely to renounce all our possessions and go forth into homelessness. And the Buddha doesn't ask lay people to give up our possessions or relationships. But as we recognize more and more clearly the stress of our attachment to all the external things that we're so bound up with, we can learn to gradually let go of the craving and the clinging. We can come to that sense of laying down the burden. sometimes we talk about, when we talk about Nekama, we speak of it as being a movement towards simplicity. And that doesn't sound so much like sacrificing, I think. The most important things to let go of course, are greed, hatred, and delusion, the tendencies to those in all their many disguises. And as we gradually see the benefits of living a life that's oriented around the skillful, the wholesome, I really truly believe that the ways that we're driven by these three, they gradually weaken, just like the rigging of an old sailboat, like old rope. As we see the stress and trying to hold on to things that are changing and falling apart, our minds gradually become ready to let go of the tight hold that we have on them, or the tight hold they have on us, remembering it's not just physical things that we cling to. We know that holding on to views, holding on to attitudes, self-views, roles we play in life, whatever we cling to also clings to us. We're stuck to it in a way. So here we are, having gone through very briefly the preliminary topics that the Buddha addressed with new people to the Dharma. And tomorrow I want to talk about how I see this particular progression as a kind of preview of what the teachings special to the Buddha are about. They're kind of intrinsic to the teachings that are special to the Buddha. They aren't really separate. The seeds of understanding are already there in these preliminary, if you want to call them that, teachings. So that'll be tomorrow, and I look forward to being with you. And may you have a really beneficial day of practice of life, not separate. Thank you.